There's a hair in my tea. Did you get this ready?
I got it ready.
See?
It's probably my hair.
There's a hair in it. No,
Oh,
it's
that's
too short.
Yeah.
It's like a cat hair. It's
probably
probably
yours.
from me, yeah. Who knows how many cat hairs I've drunk over the years, you know? Okay, now that the hair is out of my tea, we can proceed with with Polite Fight. I'm John Tatey, joined as always by Gus Spellman, video editor extraordinaire. I'm editor-in-chief of the AV Club, I should say that part. And we are here to talk about Season 6, Episode 8, No One.
Worst episode. One of the worst episodes of Game of Thrones.
No, everybody on the Facebook Live show enjoyed it. Yeah, I was into it. I liked all the talking.
They said that maybe the worst scene ever. The joke scene.
The joke scene was terrible. Let's talk about the most exciting scene of the show. We're going to go straight to the end of the episode, which is this chase scene. This is like a 4.5-minute sequence here at the end that wraps up this Arya storyline. So you have a comment to kick this off, right, Gus?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, even if they liked the scene, were not super into the premise here, which is, you know, that Arya is up and about running all over the place despite her injury. So Loretta West, in the comments on the review, had this to say. I think the issue is that it's relatively easy to accept things which just don't exist in our world, like dragons, but not things which are similar to things we know, but also completely different. Characters badly hurt by knife to the guts, but can win a running fight a few days later. I still have the show and everything, but my disbelief was seriously unsuspended in that scene.
So Loretta West is saying that it's easier to suspend belief for otherworldly stuff than for stuff that's tangible.
Yeah.
That could actually happen in the real world. Okay, I think that's true.
Yeah, I think the closer you get to our world, you have to do more cinematically to sort of help us suspend our disbelief. So I guess the question is, do you think they did that successfully with this scene?
Look, I mean, you can nitpick this stuff, and we do nitpick it, and it's fun to do that, but also, like, suspending disbelief means suspending disbelief. So why does Arya survive her gut stabs? Like, because she does. Like, and that's the story, and it's not something that I really need an explanation for.
The show makes a choice to put a character in a situation that's, you know, somewhere between 1 and 10 on the dire scale. And if they ratchet it all the way up to 8 or 9, like they did, I think, at the end of last episode, they can't just then pretend in the logic of this episode that it was really only a 2 or 3 and that Arya is totally fine. You know, it plays into this, like, fast-paced, like, consume everything as it happens, don't worry about the past.
Did they overplay it at the end of last episode? Yes. I'm not losing any sleep over it.
Okay.
You know? Let's get to some visuals, because that's what we're here for, right? I want to look at this chase scene. This is, and I think you'll agree with me, this is a pretty classic chase scene structure in terms of the spaces that we move through. We start narrow. We're in Lady Crane's apartment here, and the way that they frame it, especially with Arya, she has this doorway behind her. There's only one way to go, you know? And then it breaks out into the open, and the reason chase scenes do that is obviously to show the chaos and the sort of devil-may-care, nothing else matters but this energy of it, right? Let the pinball ricochet around the machine a little bit. And then we go back to narrow spaces, and these are some beautiful shots at the end of this sequence. Arya almost disappearing into the image foreshadows how this is going to play out. She seems to be cornered, right? And then we realize, oh, actually, this is her corner that she set up in the catacombs. She's the one trapping the waif instead of the waif cornering Arya. And that to me is a nice way to play with our expectations by taking this standard chase sequence that ends up with the chasee being cornered and having it be a turnabout. Not something we haven't seen before, but I just really I found this scene totally exciting, and that's a nice payoff at the end there.
And it reminded me a lot of a shot from 2 episodes ago when she first finds this space. It's like the last shot in the scene. She moves in front of the candle, and there's this big shadow behind her, and it almost feels like, oh, somebody else is coming in behind her.
Yes.
And at the time, it seems like, oh, she must be scared. What would happen if somebody else came in here? But in retrospect, it almost feels like she was thinking, okay, this is what will happen if somebody comes in behind me. It'll be dark, shadowy, and there'll only be this one light. It's just interesting to go back and watch that. When you're watching it the first time, you read it as fear, and you can go back and look at it now and see it as foresight.
All right, I did my narrow, wide, narrow bit with the chase scene. Now you do your let's call it close, wide, close
Sure,
for
yeah.
Jamie and Edmure scene, which is another, you and I zeroed in on the two best scenes of this show,
I think so,
of this
yeah.
episode.
This Edmure Jamie scene was just really, really well done. There's not anything super special about the way that they set it up, but to me, what I think really sells this interaction is the way that it's edited. The setups that they have here are pretty basic. They've got a wide for Edmure, a wide for Jamie, a medium for Edmure, a medium for Jamie, a close-up for Jamie, a close-up for Edmure, and an extreme close-up for Edmure.
Right.
And then they have a few other shots that they use to their advantage.
So this is
the
their
shot where they're
toolbox
facing off.
for
Yeah,
their-
so this
for
is
this scene.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is the toolbox. It feels pretty standard throughout the first part of their interaction. And then Edmure asks him, how do you sleep at night? Again, nothing special about this, but the fact that they wait through this whole scene for Edmure's first close-up when he's really sort of sticking the knife into Jamie, I think it's just very effective.
It's good restraint. It's a nice build. As Gus is scrubbing through the scene, you can see the build of the close-up for Edmure.
And then they have this little exchange where Jamie sort of pirouettes basically back on Edmure and starts talking about his sister. After he's gotten Edmure at his most upset, this is Edmure like shaking around, the camera's a little shaky. Then we go back out to the wide shot, and Jamie's like, here's the situation, let me remind you and the viewers,
Right.
you're my prisoner.
You're my prisoner.
And
then
then
we
he
get the
uses-
wide shot that shows us that, right? It
Yes,
reminds that, because
exactly.
we've had all these close-ups, and it makes it feel like these are two guys on equal footing
Mm-hmm.
having a conversation. And to pull back to the wide shot for that
see
line hits
one of
home
them's
the
tied
truth
to a
of-
pole.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you get Jamie standing up and coming closer and closer and closer. And I think it's important that this is not a situation where they're cutting in closer. He's literally coming in. It's like he's taking control of the way that we see him. I think that's the moment where you see he's really got control of this scene. And now you get an even closer close-up of Edmure than the one that you got before. You get even closer to see how much this is affecting him. And I think that's really what sells you that Edmure has been convinced.
I think another important aspect of this shot here, Gus, is that this is not just a close-up, it's a motivated point of view shot. We can sort of conceptually feel Jamie's gaze on him in a way that you couldn't with the earlier close-ups,
Yeah.
and that changes the intensity of it too. The context matters.
So I just thought that they did a great job of pacing out the emotional moments in this scene and using the editing to articulate who's got the power.
Nothing maybe groundbreaking or terribly experimental here, but I think if you watch this scene back, every shot sort of matches the line well. Okay. Thank you for your comments, as always. I guess we only had one comment this week, but thank you for your comment.
Thanks, Loretta.
We'll be back next week to talk about what looks to be a pretty big deal episode. I have a feeling we may be talking about the composition of battle scenes next week.
Maybe.
2 episodes left in the season. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week. For Gus Spellman, I'm John Tatey. So long for now.
Bye, guys.